Did you know that the average AE only closes about 15 to 25% of their deals? Well, you're not here to be average. I've spent the last 15 years of my life in tech sales. And if there's one thing I've learned, it's that most opportunities are won or lost right on your first discovery call. So it is critical to get it right. And in this video, I'm gonna share with you 5 discovery call hacks that are gonna completely transform your career and more than 5x those commission checks. And what I'm about to start with is gonna seem completely counterintuitive. And the first hack is, you gotta learn to say no to people.
Not in my house. No.
That's right, you gotta get really good at disqualifying bad customers because you can't be spending time with tire kickers and time wasters. There's a lot of people out there who are willing to waste your time.
You're driving along, and all of a sudden the kids are yelling from the back seat, I gotta go to the bathroom, Daddy. Not now, damn it.
And before you go saying,
Well, Brian, I'm a great salesperson. I could convince anybody to buy my product.
all right, that's a cool story, bro, but here's the problem. There's this thing called opportunity cost. And if you spend a bunch of time trying to convince somebody who really isn't a good fit for you, that's time that you're taking away from that higher value customer. Let me tell you a story from my childhood that really exemplifies opportunity cost. So I used to live in Hawaii and I climbed a lot of mango trees. In fact, I even had a fort in a mango tree. And every now and then you see the juiciest mango all the way up at the top. And of course, being the kid I was, I would always try to get it. And I'd be climbing the tree, I'd be risking life and limb. I remember one time I had a branch break on me. I fell from a pretty big height and I got the wind knocked out of me. And a lot of times I wouldn't even get the mango. Well, what if I told you that there were 3 perfectly ripe mangoes right there on ground level? Well, you'd probably be thinking, you must not have been a very smart kid. Okay, well, I was 8 years old, so give me a break. But the problem is, some of you guys are doing this in your sales careers. You're out here trying to reach that mango all the way at the top of the tree when you got perfectly fine customers right within reach. And here's the other problem with reaching for those deals that you really shouldn't be working. Because what it really tells the customer is that you're desperate for their business. And the problem with desperation, it's a stanky ass cologne and people can smell it from a mile away. And there's this crazy concept, you might have heard it before, I know a lot of salespeople haven't, but it's this concept that's called self-respect. I know, it's a crazy theory, but there have actually been studies done on this. And when you respect yourself, your customers, they're 20 to 30% more likely to respect you. And when you're willing to walk away from a deal, it shows the customer that you're serious, you mean business. Your time is valuable and so is your product. And if they're not the best fit for you, that's okay. You're gonna go on to somebody who's better because you got some good stuff. It's a lot like dating. If you're out here just all desperate, you're in the friend zone and you're trying to find a relationship, your best move, it's not to take that friend and try to make them into your partner. Sure, it might work, but the chances are you're gonna scare that person away and it's not gonna work out. You're much better off finding a partner who's interested in you. And think about it like this, just as much as the customer is qualifying you and your product, you're qualifying your customer and seeing if they're worth your time. Do they got a budget? Is there an initiative? Are they the decision maker? I remember I would make customers convince me that they were worth my effort and my energy. And that's what customers value the most, is when you have that level of respect for yourself, they know that, okay, this guy's not gonna waste my time because he's not even gonna waste his own time. So then how do you get good at disqualifying? Well, that actually leads us to our next discovery hack, and it's a 4-letter word. And before you get too excited, it's not a curse word. It's actually an acronym, which for some reason we love acronyms in tech sales, but this acronym is the root of all modern discovery frameworks. And in fact, if you're not using some form of this framework, chances are you're probably not crushing your quota. And that 4-letter acronym, it's called SPIN. And there's an entire book about it. And what spin selling is about is they analyzed over 35,000 sales calls and they figured out what makes the difference between your top performers and your bottom performers. And the findings, they were groundbreaking because they weren't just using a bunch of hyperbole like,
oh, that guy's got a lot of grit, or they just have it.
No. We're talking about a scientific step-by-step playbook that you could use today. So let's break it down. Basically, each letter in SPIN stands for a certain type of question. And we'll start with S, which is situational questions. And these are the foundational questions. You guys are all doing it already. There's nothing groundbreaking here, but it's required. You need to understand the customer's current lay of the land. So you ask them what their current situation is. Tell me a little bit more about your current vendor. What's your current process look like? Now, the thing about situational questions is even though they're required, some of us ask way too many situational questions, and they're not necessarily engaging, and they don't give us the level of information that we really need to dive into the customer's pains. So that's actually gonna bring us to the next type of question, which is super critical, and that is P for problem questions. And this is where you try to understand if their situation is problematic. And these are great questions. In fact, most salespeople ask problem questions. An example might be, what's the problem with your situation? I know, it's not rocket science, people. This is just sales. But you have to ask because the reality is, as salespeople, we should be fixing problems. That's our job. That's how we sell products. But are they willing to pay to fix those problems? Because we all got friends who love complaining about their problems, but they got no intentions of doing anything about it. And that's where the next type of question is gonna make or break you. In fact, the next type of question is what separates the bottom and the high performers. And that's I, implication questions. All right, and this is where we get to the good stuff. Because you're trying to understand, is there any implication to their problems? Are they just complaining? Or is there something serious going on? Because what they found in the Spin Selling book is that 35% of top performers are asking implication questions. In fact, the underperformers, a lot of times they just get excited when they hear problems and they get those happy ears and they don't even go one layer deeper to understand if the implication of the problem is serious enough to actually justify the expense. And so let's say there is a lot of implications to their problems and their situation. Well, that brings us to the last type of question, and that is the need payoff. What's the benefit if we're able to solve their problem? So, I got a question for you though. What do you think people are more motivated by? Is it to avoid pain or is it to seek pleasure? Well, if you said to avoid pain, you got it right. It is ingrained in our DNA to avoid pain at all costs. So let me give you an example back to childhood Brian, but I hated cleaning my room. If my parents came in there and they said, if you don't clean the room right now, you're grounded, I'm probably gonna clean the room. But if they came in there and they said, if you clean your room, I'm gonna give you a cookie. It depends on what kind of cookie it is. If it's oatmeal raisin, my room's gonna stay dirty. If it's like a fresh chocolate chip cookie, maybe. But chances are, I'm not gonna clean that bad boy for a cookie, unless I'm just in the mood for a cookie. But what if they said, if you don't clean your room, you're gonna be grounded, but if you do clean your room, we're gonna give you a fresh chocolate chip cookie. Man, I'd pull out the feather duster, I'd be spit shining those windows, I'd be vacuuming my sister's room, and that's the power. If you could get the implication and the need payoff, not only are you solving their pains, but you're also giving them the pleasure, right? You're giving them the benefit. And that's the art of spin selling, is to really make it a no-brainer. And if you make it this compelling of a case, the customer, they're gonna sell themselves. And here's the deal. If all you got is situations and problems and there are no implications, there are no need payoffs, then you might want to disqualify the deal, like we said in the first hack. In spin selling, it's really gonna help you get to the bottom of whether this is a nice to have or a need to have. And remember, this is a discovery call. The whole point of it is for you to ask questions and discover your customer's needs. And this actually leads us to our third hack, which is you gotta stop selling on your disco calls. Have you ever just talked with someone and all they do is talk about themselves? And even worse, when they do ask you a question, it's not because they actually care. They're just trying to set themselves up. I had this exact thing happen to me just the other day. I get a little knock on my door. I answer, I don't know why, and it's pest control. And he asked me a stupid question.
Hey, so do you have spiders?
No shit, Sherlock, we all got spiders. And then he just proceeds and starts telling me, oh, well, I got all these solutions to killing spiders. And I'm like, dude, I'm not even scared of spiders. In fact, I love it when I see a spider because I got this new salt gun and I love using this thing. So when I see a spider, I think, oh, I get to play with my toy. But this is what a lot of salespeople are doing. They only ask questions just to set themselves up to pitch their product. But you gotta remember, this is discovery. Save all that mess for later on in the sales process, maybe in your presentation, towards the end of the call, on a follow-up, but this is the time to learn, not the time to sell. Now, don't get it twisted. I'm not saying you can't say anything about your product here, but this isn't the time to just dump on them. If your customer has a problem in an implication and your product is the perfect fit, you're better off just saying, you know what? We actually got something just for that. And then continue to go down your discovery process. In fact, what I found is it's a lot more impressive to hold off on pitching your product and bring it up 20 minutes later, bring it up on a future call, because there's nothing impressive about just word vomiting the second you have a chance to talk about your product. Literally, anybody could do that, especially when you set yourself up. That's amateur hour. And I know I'm beating this pest control guy up, but I know a lot of salespeople do this. The only reason they ask questions is so that they could pitch their thing. But this is discovery. It is not time to do that. And I know I keep talking about asking questions and listening, but there is a limit to it. Because I've had situations myself where a customer says,
Is this an interview? I'm done answering questions.
So that actually brings us to our fourth hack, and that is you gotta do research before you get on the call. The absolute worst thing you could do as a salesperson is waste your customer's time. Because if you're wasting your customer's time, you're wasting your time. And in today's age, the information age, if you can't take a few seconds to just type in the company name in Google or ChatGPT or look them up on LinkedIn, you don't deserve to be in B2B sales. Because we're not talking about selling pest control here, we're talking about selling $1 million products. And here's the deal. The higher up you move in your career, so when you go from SMB to mid-market to majors to enterprise, the more research you're gonna have to do. So I totally understand. If you're in a high velocity business, you can't be spending 2 hours researching your customer. But when you get up to the big leagues and you're an enterprise, you better be spending that time. You better be reading 10Ks, you better be looking up people on LinkedIn, and you better know that customer inside and out before you ever get on a call. But for those of you who are in a highly transactional business, you'd be shocked at how 5 minutes of research can make all the difference in the world, especially with all the tools that we have today. Just go into ChatGPT, type in, tell me more about this company and what are their pains that they might have. We can share some prompts with you. If you guys want some of that, let us know down in the comments. But you would be shocked at how 5 minutes of research could separate you from all the other salespeople that they talk to. Because most salespeople, they're chumps, they're average. They just go into calls and they wing it. They don't even know about their customers. And they ask stupid questions like, well, what do you guys do? And by the way, I'm not trying to be harsh, because I used to be that guy. Until I had a customer call me out one day. He said, can't you just look us up on Google? And I was like, I didn't know what to say, because he was right. And ever since that day, I never did it again. And it's one Google search away. Click the About Us. Stop being lazy. Do a little bit of research before you jump on that first discovery call. So at this point, you should, 1, have some self-respect and be willing to walk away from a bad customer. 2, you should disqualify those customers or qualify them using a proven methodology like spin selling. 3, you shouldn't be info dumping or overselling on your discovery call. This is time to learn. And 4, you're not gonna waste people's time and you're gonna do research. Once you get all 4 of these mastered, that's gonna bring us to the final part of the call, and that is you always gotta have next steps. And I know this seems pretty obvious, but I remember my first SC job. I was working with a bunch of AEs. I just transitioned from the role, and I had asked this question to all my account executives as we were doing our prep for our demos. And you would be shocked at how many people had no clue what their next steps were. Their next step was just, we'll do a proposal. They see it as a very linear process. Discovery, demo, proposal, close. And while it might work that way a lot of times, it's not always that black and white. In fact, this isn't a game of checkers, this is a game of chess. And you always gotta be thinking ahead. You can't just prepare for one scenario. In fact, how many moves ahead do you think the world champion chess player Magnus Carlsen thinks? You might think it's like 5 or 10. No, this dude thinks 50 moves ahead. 5-0. That's a lot. Yet a lot of salespeople just get on the call, and if they do have a plan, usually they have one plan, and the second it takes a left turn, they don't know what to do. But you gotta stop winging it. You can't just keep going on autopilot, and you can't just shoot from the hip. No, you gotta have a plan, and you need to be thinking multiple moves ahead. What could go wrong? What could go right? What is the best path to get this deal closed? We've all been in situations where we had 20 calls with the customer and it turned into a nothing burger. We've also had situations where we had a one call close. But imagine if you just always were doing the exact same process, you weren't prepared for those other scenarios, you might turn that one call close into a 4 call loss. And here's the thing, is a man with a plan is always gonna be respected. Like we said earlier, you want your customers' respect, because the best thing you could do as a salesperson is make this easy for them. Don't ask your customer, so what do you think we should do next? That is one of the worst questions you can ask. That tells everybody that you're unprepared and this is your first rodeo. Even if it's been your 20th rodeo, it means that you probably suck at sales. No, what you need to do is you need to tell your customer what the next steps are, and then let them push back if they don't agree. And people love this shit because you're trying to make their life easier, make the buying decision as easy as possible, help them find the path of least resistance. And if you do this right, you're not gonna have to beg customers to sign contracts before the end of quarter so that you can hit your quota. No, you're gonna be the guy who hits his quota 2 months before the quarter's over. Because hitting quota is just table stakes. No, we're talking about crushing your quota. So you hit those accelerators and start making those big boy paychecks. So those are 5 discovery hacks that you could use immediately today that are going to completely transform your discovery calls. And once you get through that, once you master this process, I highly recommend you check out our next video, which is about objection handling, where we talk about 5 secrets that are gonna help you absolutely crush objections. And if you found this video valuable and you wanna keep getting tips and secrets on how to smash your quota, make more money, and get promoted, then click that like button, subscribe for more, and do not forget to share it with your friends. We'll see you in the next video.